Hello, everyone. There was a viewer that wanted me to go over this paper, and essentially, I think the bigger question is which monoclonal antibody works against Omicron? So this is a paper out of the National Institutes of Health. They were looking at different antibodies neutralizing Omicron. This is B11529 is Omicron. So let's just basically in this paper, what they did is they took the Omicron spike protein and put it into a lentivirus. That's a different kind of virus. Anyway, what they do is they make this lentivirus and have that lentivirus infect some cells. They see how many cells get infected. Then they put these different monoclonal antibodies in with this manufactured lentivirus that has the Omicron spike protein, and they see how well it keeps it from being able to infect cells. All right, so let's just go right down to the important. All right, this is the important figure right here. So the way you read this thing is here's all the antibodies that they tested. This is the different variants. This is wild type, alpha, beta, and then this is Omicron right here. All right. And then what you see here is something called IC50 and IC80. IC50 means inhibitory concentration 50 and inhibitory concentration 80. That means what concentration of antibody did you need to give them to reduce the number of infections by 50%. And then IC80 is what concentration of antibody did you need to give them to reduce it by 80%. So the better antibody will require a lower concentration. So what you see here is that for the wild type, and this is in nanograms per milliliter, just 1 nanogram per milliliter of this AZ2358.1 was able to knock it down by half. And if you give it 4.5 nanograms, then it knocks it down by 80. Or here, this is I can't pronounce the name. It's Bebtelovimab or something. It's one of the it's Eli Lilly's monoclonal antibody. One of Eli Lilly's monoclonal antibodies. And this one, you only needed 3.6 of this, and in the wild type, and it would knock it down by 50. But if you go to Omicron, even if you gave it more than 10,000 nanograms per milliliter, did not affect it. So this is just not effective against Omicron. So if you look in Omicron, almost everything is not effective. Which is the one that's the most effective? It's this one right here, LICOV 1404. This is Eli Lilly and Abcelera's monoclonal antibody. I did a video about this several months back, and I'll link it up here, up there. And then, so if you look at this one, across all the different variants, it's actually pretty effective. And that's what they said when they developed this thing. When they developed this thing, they had tested it against every variant up to Delta, and it worked very well against every variant up to Delta. And so they thought that they had found an epitope on the spike protein that was conserved and did not change across the variants, and that they felt like this antibody was going to work for future variants, and their prediction was correct, at least for Omicron, and it appears to work with Omicron. Just 5 nanograms per milliliter is effective against Omicron. So that's what this paper showed. This paper shows, so the Regeneron monoclonal antibody does not work. It's not effective against Omicron. And then this Bebtelovimab is by the other Eli Lilly antibody. It's not effective. But this LICOV 1404, and that's called Bebtelovimab. Let me see if I can. Yeah, so this is that first one, Bebtelovimab. These things are tongue twisters. That is this LICOV 555. That's this. And in this paper, you also see the same thing. Here's the different variants and higher concentrations needed to give 50% knockdown. You see that this is not effective on Omicron. And this is the Regeneron not effective. It's very high. So the lower these bars are, the more effective it is. So you see this is not effective. This is the same thing that we saw. This is the Regeneron, and you see that it was very effective at alpha and delta. And as you decrease the concentration, it falls off. But with Omicron, no concentration was effective. Now, is that the only monoclonal antibody that works against it? No. They did another, this is another paper. This is called B11529 Omicron escapes the majority of SARS-CoV neutralizing antibodies of diverse isotopes. If you look down here, okay, where were we? Okay, right here. This is the IC50, and you see for Omicron, here is Regeneron right here, and here's, okay, let's see, what is that called again? Bebtelovimab. Not effective. So greater than 10 is IC50. However, there's this thing called right here, VIR 7831. That is very effective, 0.181. That is called Sotrovimab. And I did a video back in March about this, said it looked very promising at that point. That was well before any of these variants came out, but they thought that they had a good one. And it's still effective. This DXP604, I believe, is not available at the moment, but is also effective against Omicron. So we have basically a few monoclonal antibodies that are still effective against Omicron. Now these are restricted to high-risk patients, so people that are immunocompromised, morbid obesity, diabetes, over 65, those kinds of things. If you're a relatively healthy person under 65, you will not have access to these monoclonal antibodies, and you probably shouldn't have access to them because they are in short supply and they need to be saved for people that are at higher risk of progressing to disease. Luckily, Omicron seems to be very mild. At this point, I'm sure everyone knows someone that has Omicron at work. You know, there's like 10% of the people at my work are out because they're sick with Omicron. Most of them are just having mild cold-like symptoms, and they're doing quite well. Most of them are vaccinated. And so it's hard to know, or they've been previously infected, so maybe that's why they're having pretty mild symptoms. But everyone that I know seems to be having pretty mild symptoms, and the data suggests that it is mild overall, which is good news. Okay, but if you want to know how to read these things, lower number is better. And so this VIR 7831, Sotrovimab, and LICOV 1404, that's Bebtelovimab, is very effective, and this is effective across all variants. So those are the two monoclonal antibodies that work: the Regeneron and the Bebtelovimab, and also the combination of these two. That's has an emergency use authorization for FDA. This combination is not effective anymore against Omicron. So I hope that that's useful. I will link these papers in the description below if you want to peruse them yourself. But thanks for watching, and comments are welcome below.